Welcome, Daily Stoic Geniuses.
Hello.
I figured I would
It's great.
start with some warmth and confidence
Yes.
because relationship building is my least developed strength. So, did you feel the warmth?
Have you felt the warmth from me? I was sending it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, very warm.
All right, it's April 28th, and today we're going to talk about wants make you a servant.
Wants make you a servant. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Before I say our quote by Seneca, I'm going to repeat my objection to this whole conversation about wants, because I'm still not totally clear on where the line in the sand is between a need and a want.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if there is such a thing as a harmless want, where's the line in the sand between a harmless want and a harmful want?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to put that out there before we read the quote,
Yeah,
because
that's
that's
great.
essentially, anytime they talk about desires or wants being problematic, I find that by the end of our conversation, I'm always back at the same question, which is what I just said. Okay, so we have a quote from Seneca, and this is part of his play that he wrote called Thyestes. So this is 2 lines of dialogue between 2 characters. The first character, Tantalus, says, "The highest power is," and Thyestes says, "no power if you desire nothing." The highest power is no power if you desire nothing. I'm going to take this to mean that when he says the highest power is, like, the highest power over my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the highest power over my life is no power or nothing if I desire nothing. In other words, desires...
Like life has no, or like something has no power over you if you don't desire.
If you don't desire it, if you don't
Yeah.
want it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like your desires are the things that have the highest power over you, but if you don't have those desires, then you render them powerless.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that might be like a very clear distinction, but then there's a problem with the which is I set up a goal for myself. Now that's a problem, right? No, well, it's a problem only if you're like it has to happen.
Right. Maybe it's like the degree of how attached you are to the want.
Maybe.
So maybe it's
And
not
maybe
even...
it is hard to manage the attachment to things, so that's why it's like, well, if
that's
you want
maybe what
something,
the power that they're talking about is like, you take your power back by softening the attachment to something. And you might say, I do want this thing, but if I don't get it, I'm not going to be terribly upset or broken apart by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Okay. That's the quote today. You want to read Ryan?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Tell us what you think about this. Like, whenever anybody talks to me about this wants thing, like wants being problematic, I always go into this thing of like, what exactly are you talking about? Because as you just said, there's maybe the goal aspect of things, which is a healthy thing to have. And then also there's the distinction between needs and wants. And so it's like, is it problematic for me to say I want a glass of water?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I get to when we start talking about this without defining our terms really well. So if you're watching this at home and you have something similar, or maybe you feel like you have more clarity than I do on this, let me know. Okay, here's what Ryan says. In the modern world, our interactions with tyranny are a bit more voluntary than they were in ancient times. We put up with our controlling boss, though we could probably get a different job if we wanted. We change how we dress or refrain from saying what we actually think, because we want to fit in with some cool group. We put up with cruel critics or customers because we want their approval. In these cases, their power exists because of our wants. You change that, and you're free. The late fashion photographer Bill Cunningham occasionally declined to invoice magazines for his work. When a young upstart asked him why that was, Cunningham's response was epic. If you don't take money, they can't tell you what to do, kid. Remember, taking the money, wanting the money, proverbially or literally, makes you a servant to the people who have it. Indifference to it, as Seneca put it, turns the highest power into no power, at least as far as your life is concerned.
Got it. So the highest power the power that is the strongest, that has the strongest influence over us, becomes non-existent if these wants are managed or not existent or something.
And indifference was a word that stood out.
If we have indifference, so that's interesting, because indifference means do want, but if you don't get, okay. No
yeah, and I like that.
Because then not wanting is also unachievable. We want things naturally. I want to, and like we were talking about before, that want might be really a hidden need, but then there are these wants that are really not needed. I want to be successful at, being successful is somewhat of a need, but do you need to be successful by making this much money? Not necessarily, right? And now it's like, so having that goal perfect, if the goal is not being completed the way it was imagined in your mind, indifference. Yeah.
That is like kind of the shining star that I'm pulling out of this.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the stuckness in us happens, when we get these very rigorous ideas of what should happen, and then when it doesn't happen, well, we have to be, just kind of taking apart by that, right? Because it is something different than what we wanted. So now it's like we're far away from where it is, but the expectation in our minds is so rigid that we see it's not going the way we want, but we don't want to move from this goal or something. So we're like stuck in there, versus like saying, my goal didn't work out that way. I got to do some pivoting in order to come closer to where it's actually going the way, you know what I mean? So, or something, anyway, I don't want to just keep saying that, something like that. But it's great. See, now I caught it before. That's great.
That's because I told him the other day, I was like, you sometimes end your stuff with the phrase "or something."
Or something like that. Like, it's like this or something like that.
And I just started noticing it after we started filming our conversations, and I was like, oh my gosh, Ollie's like every, fourth thing that he has to say, he ends it with "or something."
Yeah.
And you know what's also interesting is that the concept of non-attachment, so like this indifference concept, is also one of the yoga philosophies. So I'm forgetting right now if it's one of the yamas or the niyamas, but like the whole 8-limb path of yoga, by the time you're even sitting on a yoga mat and breathing and doing yoga postures, the idea is that you've worked up through these foundational layers of the philosophical system. And so the yamas are how we are supposed to be in relationship to the world. And then the niyamas are how we're supposed to be in relationship to ourselves. So if I had to guess, if you were giving me a pop quiz and you were like, is non-attachment one of the yamas or niyamas? I would say the niyamas, the ones for myself, but I don't know if it's which one it is. I just know that it's part of this whole thing, this practice. The yogis don't say, get rid of all your desires or get rid of all of your wants. The yogis say practice non-attachment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different way to say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What's also interesting here is like he gave us, Ryan, in his description, he gave us like a few examples. And I just wanted to call a couple of these out because it's making me think about wants in a different way. So he says, we change how we dress or refrain from saying what we actually think because we want to fit in with some cool group. Mm-hmm. What is interesting to me there is like sometimes like I will do that, but I won't think about it as like necessarily wanting to fit in. Like I won't have that like, I want to fit in. What it will actually feel like is an insecurity.
Yes.
And so
it will feel like insecurity.
But insecurity is actually a want
to fit in.
Yes.
So
or a want to be in a situation.
You know what it is? It's funny. It's want to not be rejected. Mm-hmm. This is what it is. It's
social acceptance.
It's not like I want to be accepted. No, I want to not be rejected. Therefore, I'm not going to say something because that might be stupid. And if I say something stupid, these people are gonna think I'm stupid. They're gonna reject me. So now you not necessarily saying things to influence them a certain way. No, you're purposely not saying things. So you and not saying things makes you fit in better. So it is kind of, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like it is what he's talking about. Like it's somehow related.
If you don't want to fit in, if you don't have this burning desire that's fueled by an insecurity to fit in.
Now you all of a sudden can say all kinds of stupid stuff.
Or maybe now you fit in better too, is what you were saying.
Now you will fit in. You don't want to, you are indifferent of fitting in. Therefore, all of a sudden you're going to act that way. All of a sudden you might say something dumb. And by you saying something dumb, that group is actually going to accept you better because now you're not this perfect thing. And like you thinking that being perfect is what lets you be accepted, but it's actually the not being perfect is most likely what works on being accepted or something, because people are afraid of perfection. They don't talk about it, but it's like, oh my God, this person is like always on top of everything. They always have everything figured out. Jesus Christ, I feel diminished. I don't want to hang out with this person. They make me feel like I'm, you know what I mean? And this person is all they're trying to do is they think of you as you are this awesome person, and they're just trying to fit in. But the way they're doing it is with this kissing your butt or trying to always show the best result, and is this like overachieving thing to fit in or get something that you want, but you don't. But someone might ask me, what do you want during the time? And I say, I don't even know. I don't want to be not part of this, and so I want to manage this somehow. So I am part of it, but the managing of it is actually stinks.
The tricky part of this whole thing is that wants will often fly under the radar. And so it's like I'm not aware that they're happening, or I think that something else is going on. Like I think I'm just feeling insecure, and I'm not making the connection between the feeling of insecurity and like this burning desire to fit in or be accepted, even though that's present with the insecurity. It's just that I'm not trained to identify it as such. And so I think my takeaway from this is to really work on the identification of wants in my system, because I just don't even think that I'm not confident that I'm like totally that I'm seeing it all. Like
you're not convinced that you're not that they're
that I see
not wanting.
Or that I know what all of my wants are, because I think a lot of times our behavior is motivated by things that we're not even sure of. Like I can't even explain why I'm behaving this way or saying this thing, and of course there's a reason behind it, but it's so buried in this vagueness.
So buried, yeah, because it might show up as like anger. Like you're angry at a person. I'm angry at this person because they did this and this and this. But inside of it, there's this, well, why are you mad? Because you wanted them to do something different. You want a different outcome. You wanted something and you got something different. And now you don't say, well, I guess my expectations was set too rigorously that
I'm too attached to them.
Instead, I'm going to say, no, my expectations were correct. You didn't do X, Y, and Z.
And
That's why you're justifying your anger through this thing, but not realizing that the expectations of you wanting something from someone else have to be not so rigorous, because there's all these variables. You don't know who they are, how they're gonna actually understand what you're asking for. Blah 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 blah. All of these different things.
Right.
But it's
Yeah, I think that's a good place for me to leave it, is like the recognition that wants don't always feel like wants. They can be signaled by anger. They can be signaled by insecurity. Really, if I have a
sadness,
sure,
too.
like
You're
if I have a
sad.
strong
You're like, why
emotional,
am I sad? Something didn't go the way,
or even excitement. I got what I wanted,
100%.
and now I'm like jumping off the walls and all of this kind of stuff. And so I'm really now starting to see it as like heightened emotion on any part of the emotional spectrum is signaling to me that I'm too attached to some want in the system. Whether that want has been
something that you want.
Yeah.
Even it might be not like a tangible thing.
It might be like, I want this other person to change who they are because that's what makes it better for me, and I'm mad and upset that they're not doing it, and now I'm nagging at them, or like, whatever the case may be. I mean, wants are just so buried in there. It's easy to like read something like this on a very superficial level, on the surface level, and just be like, okay, thanks.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, I won't want things. And then like to not understand that it's literally driving all of my behavior all of the time.
Well, what is that? You want something. You must want something. You want it to already be figured it out.
Yeah, that's my learner strength, where I sabotage my learning by wanting to have already known things. All right, my friend.
Happy thinking.
What do you want?